And welcome into Chuck on Bucks. Hey guys. So, we got this new feature here on StreamYard where you can click the intro and you click the intro, it plays the intro for you automatically, and then it clicks you to live. So, here I've been doing the show for 7 minutes and realized, yeah, that didn't work. So, hello again. Welcome into Chuck on Bucks on a Thursday. Back live today. That's right, Chuck Live on a Thursday. Shout out to our Juck guys in the chat. Appreciate you guys so much. Hey, Columbus Apparel Co. guys. Big shipments coming in. Today I'm rocking this super soft crew neck. Absolutely love it. Incredibly comfortable. And I encourage you to go check out the official sponsor of Juck on Bucks, your fourth to seventh favorite college football show at ColumbusApparelCo.com, where you can get yours, as well as ordering whatever kind of custom apparel you want. There's a link in the description of all my videos on the Juck on Bucks page. I don't know if Chris has put that in on the Menace page under my videos yet. We'll have to ask him about that later. Generally, he's pretty on top of things, but I think he might have forgot that one. This is his reminder if he's watching the show. I'll tell you who does not watch the show. That would be Mrs. Juck, but she's modeling her brand new sweatshirt. Emily, a big Juck eye. Absolutely love everybody sending me the pictures when they get their stuff. So thanks to them. Doreen with her new hat. You guys are awesome. Thank you so much. But it's Thursday, guys. The eyes of the college football world will be glued prime time, Eastern Standard Time, as college football legends Noah Eagle and Canton's own Todd Blackledge bring us the sights and sounds of Autzen Stadium from Eugene, Oregon. The number 2 Buckeyes and their lightning rod of a coach, Ryan Day, who people love to talk about all around the country, take on the number 3 Oregon Ducks and their up-and-coming superstar, beloved by most, overrated by many, in the Big Ten matchup of the year that just might be the college football game of the year, right? These two teams come in ranked higher than Georgia, higher than Alabama when they met in what was previously thought to be the game of the year. But Alabama losing to Vanderbilt, to me, it's taken away a little bit of the luster that game had, as exciting as it was. I think that both of those teams have been a little bit exposed. They're certainly both national championship contenders, but neither is a huge juggernaut. Could this game between Ohio State and Oregon reveal one of these two is actually a true powerhouse in 2024 in the college football season? There's only a few candidates, right? Texas would be the other one. The Horns currently sitting at number 1. But to this point, they've not had a very big test. Many thought that test came in week 1 in Ann Arbor. Pretty clear at this point, Texas went in and beat down the 6th to 8th best Big Ten team, right? Where would you rank Michigan? That's where I'd put them. Haven't done my Big Ten power rankings. We'll probably do that tomorrow. But Texas gets Oklahoma this Saturday, 3:30. And Oklahoma, the 18th ranked team in the country. I think it's a team that's very offensively challenged with a pretty poor offensive line and a quarterback making his second start ever in the biggest rivalry that his school plays in. I don't give them much of a chance. But I was thinking what there is a chance of, we could see number 1 change hands from Ohio State to Texas. Or I'm sorry, from Texas to Ohio State, back to Texas and back to Ohio State in consecutive weeks. So this week, Texas and Ohio State split votes. Texas had 52. Ohio State had 9. Let's say Texas beats Oklahoma by a couple of points, but Ohio State beats Oregon convincingly. I think in that scenario, Ohio State takes over number 1. The following week, Texas hosts Georgia. Ohio State's on a bye. I hope I'm not just breaking that to you that the Bucks got a bye next week because, we got a bye. Now, they probably need it as we got Penn State next, but, I hate bye weeks, and I certainly hate having 2. We're going to have 2 again next year as well. But let's say in that week, Texas beats Georgia. Now they've got wins over Michigan and Oklahoma and top 5 Georgia. Ohio State just has wins against top 5 Oregon and a decent Iowa team, and now that's not close. Texas retakes number 1. The following week, Ohio State plays Penn State. Penn State, number 4 in the country, when they go out to play USC this week. And if Penn State beats USC this week, they're going to be number 3. They play Wisconsin following that. Wisconsin, terrible. That means the Ohio State-Penn State game the Buckeyes are going to get the opportunity to play 2 top 3 teams in a 3-week span, which is amazing. Should Ohio State win that game, how do the Texas and Buckeye resumes look? Well, Texas has now beaten Michigan and Oklahoma, 2 barely ranked teams, and a top 5 Georgia. Ohio State has beaten 2 top 3 teams. Buckeyes have the better resume. And in that scenario, the number 1 spot in the country would go from Texas to Ohio State to Texas to Ohio State in 4 consecutive weeks. Listen, I know a lot of things got to happen, but no upsets. It's chalky as hell. The favorite wins in every single scenario there. Something interesting. This is what I think about when I'm sitting around scenarios. But I'll tell you what I do like about this. I think because the college football poll, the AP poll, is not very consequential to the playoff anymore, that these voters maybe aren't taking themselves so seriously. And what we're getting is kind of what we've always wanted, which is for them to be a little more fluid with the polls. It certainly felt that way to me this year. They're kind of looking at it from a week to week and not just holding on to their preconceived beliefs about everything and adjusting accordingly. And I think it's pretty cool. I absolutely love to see it. I've never really enjoyed looking at the top 25 too much or dissecting it, but this year it's been a lot more fun because they're taking that approach. So, have not been live since Monday. How's the crew in the chat? How we doing? What's up, everybody? Oh, Tamarcus Carter, thanks for the $4.99, buddy. Love you too. Juckeyes in full effect this morning. Good morning, Doreen, Mika, Jeff. What's up, Rod, Steely? How's everybody doing? Emily, what's up, guys? Mika says, I think Burke and Hancock have interceptions for touchdowns. Gosh, I would love that. I would absolutely love that. And we've got some keys to the game we are going to definitely get into. A whole lot to talk about. Not just a huge Buckeye game Saturday, but a lot of huge games. A day that's been talked about in college football for a long time, right? And we'll go in deeper into the slate tomorrow like we do every Friday. But just briefly, if we can recall back to the beginning of the year, like we were talking about October 12th as the best day in the college football world for, I don't know, some time, right? But a few of these other games that we were really looking forward to, we got Red River, Texas number 1, Oklahoma number 18. We got Penn State, USC. Penn State's number 4 in the country, USC unranked. We've got number 10, Ole Miss, going into number 13, LSU. That's going to be a night game at LSU. That's always fun. Florida and Tennessee was mentioned in this pack of games at the time when we were talking about it early on. That one I don't think carries too much interest at this point, especially when it's going head-to-head against Ohio State, Oregon, and Ole Miss, LSU. And it sucks that Ole Miss, LSU is opposite the Buckeyes game because I like to watch primetime games from Death Valley with 2 ranked teams when it's live, and I will probably see 5 minutes of that game going up against the Buckeyes game. That's just not going to happen. I'm certainly not watching the Ohio State Oregon game on a split screen. No chance of that. But we're talking about these games. I want to talk about Red River for a minute. I've been a college football fan all my life, right? And I'm certainly not someone who didn't pay attention to the Big 12. I absolutely love the Big 12. I've always found it to be exciting and just so much different than the Big 10, particularly when I was younger and they were running air raids and stuff. It was just different football, so it was fun. So certainly someone who's been in tune to Red River, but it's never struck me in my life as an absolute, like, you can't miss Red River. It's usually a fun game, but I think it's very overrated as a rivalry. I think a lot of it has to do with playing at a neutral site, much like the cocktail party. They just don't grab me. It just doesn't feel right. And I bring this up because I've been seeing a push lately to call Red River the greatest rivalry game in college football. And every so often you see things like this where somebody wants to kind of go against the grain of conventional wisdom and they put out a take like this. And if it's a smart guy and someone who has a following, you see a bunch of people kind of hop on with this. And there's been a big push to call Red River the biggest rivalry in college football lately. Everybody can have their own opinion about this. Hell, some people think Clemson, South Carolina is the best rivalry in college football, or Notre Dame, USC. But you got 2 blue bloods in Texas and Oklahoma. The majority of people obviously think that Ohio State, Michigan is the greatest rivalry in college football. I don't know that I can appropriately say, having been someone who's grown up in that rivalry, like I don't know another rivalry. You know what I mean? Like I can look at it from the outside and it doesn't seem like it could possibly compare to what I'm living in. But I wouldn't expect someone in Texas and Oklahoma to understand the Ohio State Michigan rivalry either. So I think everybody involved is probably a little skewed, but it's pretty much unanimously agreed upon for longer than I've been alive that the game is the biggest rivalry in college football, maybe in American sports. But what I can't stand in this push to call Red River the biggest rivalry is I'm hearing it backed up by saying, unless you've gone to it, you can't say. Well, 99.7% of college football fans will never go to the Iron Bowl, to the game, to Red River, to the cocktail party, to Notre Dame USC. And far fewer than 99.7 will go to every single one of those to get an honest comp. And let's be honest, as people who live within a rivalry for 365 days a year, the actual 3.5 hours that the game is played does not encapsulate the rivalry at all. So for someone to say you can't speak on it unless you've gone, they're essentially saying that unless you've gone to 5 or 7 of the best rivalries in college football, your opinion doesn't count, which means only, I don't know, less than 0.002% of the college football population gets to weigh in on what is the best rivalry in college football. Red River is not the greatest rivalry in college football. And I can say that factually, and I'll prove it on Saturday because the Red River shootout won't even get the most eyeballs on a random Saturday in October. The game, on the other hand, gets double the eyeballs of every other game on rivalry weekend. Red River shootout can't even beat Ohio State, Oregon. How would it do opposite the game? Not good, man. It's a joke take. It's the 5th and 8th ranked Blue Bloods of all time in the Juck on Bucks ranking system. And that's just not good enough. It's just not. Let me check in on our chat. Doreen got her gear. That's fantastic. Hope you like it. My man Chad from the Best Damn Pod. What's up, brother? How's everybody doing today? Oh, yeah. John, we're going to get to it. I got the clip loaded up. People Ballistic. So Dylan Davis, my buddy, Dylan Davis, you guys see Dylan with me every week. Dylan Davis posted a video last night, and we will get to it. It is it's a Josh Fryar clip, and people are feeling some type of way about it. And I got some thoughts on it for sure. But since my last show, we've had 2 new visitors for the game announced. Trey McNutt. Trey McNutt will be at the game, his new home, as he calls it. It wasn't long ago that he tweeted to the Oregon staff that we need to bring Naeem Offord home. Well, Naeem's going to be out there with Trey. This is probably Trey's 4th trip out to his new home. And there's no doubt that he's going to be working on Naeem Offord really hard. Dorian Brew has also announced that he will be there. 2 dudes that grew up in Ohio, chose Oregon over Ohio State. So a little extra motivation for a resounding victory. Let's talk about Naeem Offord for a second. As his dad, Kaori, was on with Philip Dukes on 3, and they started off talking about his commitment to Ohio State. And Pop said that he did not know Naeem was going to commit to Coach Day when they were sitting in his office. So he was pretty surprised. And if you can remember back to that day, Naeem and fam, like there was a bunch of them, and it felt like there was some momentum that he was going to commit that day. And sure enough, he did. But Pops did not see that coming. And you could find this whole interview on On3's recruiting channel. And I'm going to play a couple of snippets, but the vibe I took from it wasn't great from the perspective of the Ohio State fan. I think Pops talked about Oregon in a little bit more of a glowing light. That's my interpretation of it. My buddy John texted me this morning. He felt the same way. Philip Dukes in particular really seems to like Oregon. Talked about Oregon much higher than Auburn, I think, definitely. But let's hear what Phil had to say about Oregon in their talk.
About uniforms, you know, Oregon is known for the uniforms. Naeem has a certain swagger about himself. Oregon, the uniforms, being on the Pacific West Coast, kids that go to Oregon have a certain swag. How do you feel like Naeem's swag fits into Oregon?
Oh, it's swag go right in with Oregon.
Yeah.
It go right in with Oregon. I that on an official visit, when they were putting the combos together and he's just one of those type of players, man. That swag, like no matter what type of uniform he put on, he gonna make it look good. And he gonna find combo. He got a little swag about
The Oregon swag, man. The Oregon swag. Can the Buckeyes wear the white pants, please? Can we just wear the white pants on Saturday? Like they gotta wear the white pants, man. I actually heard that the white pants are not in circulation anymore. I don't think we're wearing the white pants, but gosh, that would be excellent. By the way, Naeem's dad weighed in on the white pants yesterday on Twitter, and he said that the Buckeyes will be wearing the white pants. So Naeem's dad thinks that the Buckeyes will be wearing the white pants. I've heard otherwise, but we talked about Ohio State, Oregon, and Auburn briefly. Apparently, there's another suitor who has entered for Naeem Offord. Let's hear Pops talk about it for a sec.
If Naeem was to take another visit to a certain school, what school would that be?
Colorado.
Wow. Coach Prime. Yeah. What is it about Colorado that has Naeem considering a visit?
Just the ideal of where they see Naeem at. They want to try to make him like the next Travis Hunter.
Wow.
I know any kid, they just kind of caught his attention a little bit. So, and he's never been out to Colorado, and it's just an atmosphere. But mine, and you got to think about it, Deion. In my book, Deion is the greatest DB to ever play the game.
Wow.
College, and Coach Mathis, he
didn't see that one coming. Did not see that one coming. Now, my hope was if Naeem Offord flipped, that he would do it, giving the Buckeyes plenty of time to pivot off of it, right? I don't think that's going to happen anymore. I think that if he does flip, it will be too late. And that's pretty unfortunate. Some would say that the Buckeyes should already be addressing this issue, trying hard to find a third corner, and they are. But you obviously can't get a very highly touted guy to enter into this situation unless they know Naeem's gone. There's a lot of opportunities and great places to go. And it just doesn't sound like a great opportunity to enter into a DB class with Devin Sanchez, who's cornerback number one, man. And it's not close. The absolute prototype with all the intangibles, all the physical attributes, all the drive, the perfect family. Like we all know that better than anybody. That position's locked down. And the more I watch Naeem in his senior year, he's just getting better. Who's going to come into that situation as the third corner? Nobody. So it's just an unfortunate situation where the Buckeyes find themselves kind of trying to hold on and wait. But Naeem does want to play for a winner. And the biggest thing they can do is go out to Eugene, Oregon and win. Now, the other day, I said that I thought Josh Fryar would be the most consequential player, non-quarterback player on the Buckeyes offense. And yesterday, after practice, they did their lightning round press conferences. And thanks to our buddy Dylan Davis, we got to hear from Josh Fryar and whatnot. Dylan posted a brief clip of Josh Fryar. Now, remember, Josh Fryar said something that got everybody kind of fired up a couple of months ago. Maybe it was about a month ago, when he said that practice last year, he never even got tired. And this year he's getting just totally exhausted. So that was a bit of a viral Josh Fryar clip. And it's funny because he's so soft-spoken, but he's got another one. So here's what Fryar had to say last night.
I'm not a big, I don't like it on national television because if you get messed up, everybody knows, the reporters, the announcers, everybody. But at the same time, you got to embrace it too. I think last year, personally, when it was a big game, I would kind of shy away from it. But now I feel more experienced and just ready to play the game. And it's a cool environment because you never get to experience anything like this ever again in your life. So.
All right. So he ends it on a positive note for sure. But the way that started, not very confidence inspiring, right? certainly a lot of Buckeyes are very irritated with that comment, and they absolutely want to hear a little more confidence out of the guy on the offense that's probably got the toughest match on the offensive line. He's going against their absolute stud on the Oregon defensive line, and he's talking about playing in front of a big crowd on national TV, not really liking it. It's just not a good look. So I understand where some are coming from. You want to hear some attitude, some confidence, and it just didn't come off like that. He got a little more introspective, and I appreciate his honesty. Maybe just not the day for it. You know what I mean? Not the day to get introspective. But it is what it is, guys. He is the best right tackle on the roster, and all we can hope for is that he gets over his fear of the big crowd and being on the national stage, and shuts it down the best he can. I don't know about you guys, but I'm getting a little sick of hearing about Autzen Stadium and how loud it is. It's been seriously, like, I like the Duck fans on this show. The ones on Twitter, very obnoxious. Michigan fans now obviously getting their back this week, as we will, I'm sure, when they play up in Ann Arbor. But let's talk about the game. First, let's talk about the props this week. So we got the player props out, and the player props we don't get anymore in the state of Ohio. So we have to have somebody from outside of Ohio send these to us. But Dillon Gabriel, the number, passing yards. So this is the over-under, 258. For Will, it's 247. Will Howard, rushing yards, 16.5. I think Will extending some drives with his legs is going to be a real big part of this game. So 16.5 is the over-under for Will's rushing yards. I would take the over on that. Travion, rushing yards, 55. Quinshawn, 64. And Jordan James, and I think this matchup is huge. The Buckeye linebackers versus Jordan James, and I've got that in one of my 4 main things that the Buckeyes defense needs to handle. Jordan James, 76 rushing yards. And if the Buckeyes can hold him to under 76, that's a win. That's a W. As for their receivers, Trayshawn Holden, 43. Tez Johnson, 85. And Tez has been their monster. We'll go over those wide receivers in a second. Emeka, 66. Evan Stewart, 33. JJ, 69 receiving yards. And their tight end, Terrence Ferguson, who's a load, 27. When we talk about these 2 passing games, Dillon Gabriel, Will Howard, 2 veteran guys. Dillon Gabriel on his 3rd school from Central Florida to Oklahoma, now to Oregon, and Will, of course, from K-State. And Gabriel was thought to be the number 1 guy in this portal class, the quarterback number 1. And I hadn't watched Dillon Gabriel a ton outside of a couple Oklahoma games and some highlights. And I thought he was pretty good, but I didn't think he was awesome. But when everybody was talking about him in the portal, the way they were talking about him, I figured maybe I was just missing something about him. It happens. But the talk was just like straight up fact that this guy was the number 1 quarterback in the portal. Now, I've watched every one of Oregon's games this year, including the all-22 breakdown, and I think this is a clearly limited quarterback. I think Oregon fans have come to that realization. I've talked to several of them that just admitted, like, look, he's not Bo Nix. And I don't even think Bo Nix was that great, but Dillon Gabriel is not that great. Will Howard also has some limitations, right? If we're being objective. And as an objective point of view, like if I was Oregon, I would choose Dillon Gabriel for that offense. And if I was Ohio State, I would choose Will Howard. So I really think that both of these programs got the right guy for their offense. But let's look at the basic numbers, because these dudes are like neck and neck. Dillon Gabriel, 1,450 yards passing. Will Howard, 1,250. Completion percentage, Gabriel 77. Will Howard, 71.5, which evens out in a second here when you look at yards per completion. Gabriel, just 8.7. Will, 9.6, which is why his completion percentage is a little bit lower. Touchdowns to interceptions, Gabriel, 11-3. Will, 12-3. Dillon's been sacked just 2 times. Sacked 5 times. Will, just 2. So pretty solid numbers for both of them. But when we heard Dillon Gabriel was going up there and we thought about those wide receivers, like I expected this was going to be a really big number offense, like big passing numbers. And clearly that's not been the case. So it's going to surprise you when I tell you what the Heisman odds are in a second here. But both guys obviously got great weapons to throw it to. And before the season started, I did a show where I went through each position group and did Ohio State versus Oregon. And I basically pretended like, okay, I'm building a new team. Which group am I going to take? Buckeyes running backs or Oregon's running backs, wide receivers, etc. And for the wide receivers, I admitted at the time that Oregon's were better on paper, but I said by the time the game is played, Jeremiah Smith would not only be a legit starter for Ohio State, but a college star, and that would give Ohio State the edge. And now that we're here, I didn't even imagine it would be quite like this. But we look at Oregon's wide receivers, Tez Johnson, Trayshawn Holden, Evan Stewart. Tez has been a total stud so far, catching everything, but short stuff. Dylan Gabriel's favorite target, 43 catches for 395 yards and 5 touchdowns. Trayshawn Holden, 19 receptions, 274 and 3 touchdowns. And Evan Stewart, who is supposed to be big time this year, a huge disappointment, 16 balls for 182 and 2 touchdowns. The three of those dudes combining for 78 catches, 851 and 10 touchdowns. Now, with Will Howard, I did not expect the Buckeyes wide receivers to put up anywhere near the numbers of Oregon's wide receivers. But Emeka and JJ combined have put up more yards and more touchdowns than all three of those Oregon dudes. And if you'd have told me that before the beginning of the season, I definitely would not have believed it. Emeka with 30 receptions for 433 and 5 touchdowns. JJ, 23 receptions, 453 and 6 touchdowns. And those numbers combined beat all three of those Oregon dudes. Add in Carnell Tate with 14 for 219 and 1. All 6 of these guys are top-notch receivers. They're all going to play in the NFL. But of the 6 of them, JJ's just different. He's just different than anybody in college football, in my opinion. And he's certainly different than the 3 on Oregon's crew over there. So I definitely feel comfortable in what I thought before. The Buckeyes have the better wide receiver room. And I'm only bringing this up not because it's very consequential to the game, but just to needle the Oregon fans who needled me a lot after saying that earlier on in the preseason. So there you go. Have back at it. Dan Lanning would trade his 3 for Ohio State's 3 in a second. I'm sorry, he just would. But when it comes to this game, I believe that the wide receivers, particularly Tez Johnson, are going to get theirs. I don't think there's even a huge reason to stress about it. We won't see much 3 linebackers from the Buckeyes defense. It'll be Cody, Sonny, Jordan Hancock. And they're going to be tasked with what I think is one of the main keys of the game, and that is stopping this run game and stopping the tight ends. And the reason that the Oregon wide receivers don't have as many yards as the Buckeye wide receivers, and I'm being a little hyperbolic with the wide receivers, but Gabriel likes his tight ends. Terrence Ferguson, 16 catches, 259 yards and 2 touchdowns, and Kenyon Sadiq, 11 receptions for another 182. In fact, these tight ends at 13.2 yards a catch, 2 more yards per catch than the wide receivers. I absolutely hate tight ends. It just conjures up images of repeatedly getting killed by tight ends on 3rd downs over and over again. Like, this is my nightmare. Oregon, 51% in 3rd down conversion, 60% in 4th down conversion. So you got the tight ends and you got Jordan James, because I don't think you need to worry about Noah Whittington. Are you familiar with Noah Whittington? Maybe you are, maybe you aren't. But the Duck fans told me all offseason he was better and faster than Travion Henderson, 165 yards on the year for 3.9 yards a carry. Not quite sure what the Duck fans were talking about with Noah Whittington. This is about Jordan James. Jordan James, 552 yards, 6.3 yards a carry, 5 touchdowns. This is a really good back, physical runner. He can bust off big ones. And for the Buckeye defense, this is Sonny and Cody in that matchup. And how that matchup goes, I think, is going to dictate how many stops the Buckeyes can get against Oregon. And let's say they limit Jordan James and those tight ends let's say Jordan James to, well, we saw that line, right? His number was 76. I don't even think it needs to be that low. Limit this guy to under 100. Limit the tight ends to under 60, and you're going to get more stops than they can get. Like, I just really believe in the flow of this game, guys. I think that this is going to end up like so many of these big time matchup games go, and that's a higher scoring game. And the over-under line right now is 52 points. That seemed pretty low to me. I'm definitely taking the over. But key number 2 for the Buckeye defense, Oregon offensive coordinator Will Stein wants the ball out of Dylan Gabriel's hands in 2.5 seconds. And the Buckeyes defensive line needs to make sure that if that does not happen, if he holds it a tick longer, he is absolutely taking a hit. He's a small dude. We saw him get hurt against Michigan State, and we have seen Jack's got 10 quarterback hits. That is a ton. When we look at Jack versus their 2 big dudes on their defensive line who have just as many hurries, they only have like 1 and 3 quarterback hits. The quarterback hits could tell the story here. And the Buckeyes' main takeaway, my second biggest key is pressure with 4 men. Those wide receivers, they're good. And if you give them more time, they're going to get open. They're really fast. The DBs, you don't want to leave them stranded in coverage long. You don't want to allow Dylan Gabriel to hold the ball longer than that 2.5 seconds. You want to get out of there faster. So the Oregon offensive line had trouble in the beginning of the season. Now it looks to have rounded out into shape. The tackles are pretty damn good. Interior pressure with Ty Leak and Ty Hamilton, we might be able to make some hay right there. They've straightened it out a bit, bringing in their center Poncho. They got Poncho in there, Poncho or Nacho, one of the two. And Poncho or Nacho has improved the interior quite a bit. And the Buckeye defensive line is going to have to make sure that he gets the ball out fast. 4-man pressure, key number 2. Number 3, the secondary needs to limit explosive plays. And the Buckeyes have been excellent this year and have put an emphasis on that. And I can't help but thinking that maybe they've put so much of an emphasis on that going against Michigan State, where it was irritating to everybody, in preparation for this game. These wide receivers are going to get theirs underneath. They just are. And particularly Tez Johnson, right? Stewart, kind of the long ball guy, but Tez Johnson's going to get his underneath. What you can't have is 10-yard catches turn into 30-yard games. And that, I think, is what Oregon is going to be banking on here. Dylan Gabriel's not seen many secondaries this good in his career. The Ohio State secondary practices against wide receivers this good every day. And if the Buckeye secondary can shrink those windows, make Gabriel doubt himself, maybe get an early pick, shake him up a little bit, but most especially limit those explosive plays, along with solid linebacker play and 4-man pressure, the Bucs are in great shape. Now, out of those 3 defensive keys, the only one I'm worried about is limiting Jordan James and the death by 1,000 cuts from tight ends on 3rd down. I just got so many nightmares about that from crappy teams just beating us with tight ends on 3rd down. I hate good tight ends. They've got 2. Don't forget, they also got to worry about Dylan Gabriel running. Dylan Gabriel, 24 rushes on the year, not a ton of yards, but he can pop an explosive 54-yard touchdown against Oregon State. You guys remember 3 rushing touchdowns this year. So the Buckeye defense, they need to get a handful of stops, and they need to play great in the red zone, which they have all year, though they haven't had many opportunities to play great in the red zone. But how's Oregon's red zone offense? Well, they rank 92 in the country, much of that thanks to Dylan Gabriel throwing a couple picks down there. They've taken 21 trips to the red zone, 14 touchdowns, 3 field goals, 7 rushing touchdowns, 7 passing touchdowns, 81% scoring rate, and that's 92nd out of 134. They go up against a red zone defense that is number 3 in the country, as the Buckeyes have only allowed 5 trips, given up 3 touchdowns. This is obviously a huge key to winning the game. When they get down there, forcing them into field goals, which is going to be really tough, especially when you got a quarterback who can run down there and you got good tight ends. which they do. So those are my defensive keys. We will go over my offensive keys tomorrow. And don't forget, tomorrow on Friday, we always go over the full slate of games, and we will go over our picks, which brings me to our first break of the show. Hey, it's Juck, and MyBookie is back with another offer for the Juck on Bucks audience. Open up a new MyBookie account, and they're going to match whatever you put in 100%. Put in $100, they're going to make it 200. Put in 3, they're going to make it 6, all the way up to $1,000. If you're new to sports gambling, we do picks every Friday. We are +7 on the year for the Juck on Bucks official picks, and we're going to keep it on rolling. So sign up for MyBookie. They're going to match your deposit. Use the promo code JUCK, and we're going to go through that every week, every Friday. Also, if you like online casinos, they're going to give you a $10 free chip for that as well. It's a great sports book. I've been using it for years. If you're new to gambling, I'm here every morning at 9:30. Put a question in the chat. I'll help you. I'm an experienced gambler, so to speak. The key is don't risk what you can't afford to lose, and you'll always have fun. Have some fun with me. Sign up, MyBookie, promo code JUCK. Get your free money. There we go. Promo code JUCK at MyBookie. And don't gamble what you can't lose, guys. That's the key. That's the key to having fun. The Oregon fans, guys. We got some with us this morning. I know it's pretty early out there, but boy, are they bringing up that 2021 game in full effect. Now, I've talked about this throughout the offseason, but the 2021 game, Ohio State, Oregon, obviously a bad game for the Buckeyes defensively, and a game that led to a lot of changes defensively. Really a game that you need, right? You need games like that to make change, and that game spurred some change. But what's interesting to me is the Oregon fans are really bringing this puppy up. They never bring up the other 9 matchups, of which Ohio State won every one, including games that actually meant something, like a Rose Bowl in a national championship. And that's annoying to me, but I got in some I was on one yesterday with the Oregon fans, which again, love the Oregon fans here. I call them the Duck Eyes. They're really cool. The ones I've been interacting with this week on Twitter, absolutely not. Terry Slusher, Oregon by 14. No way, bro. I am really interested to see what you guys think. Brad thinks Tyleek is incredible. And obviously the difference between a Tyleek-less Ohio State defense and a Tyleek-full Tyleek defense or Buckeye defense is very apparent. And because of that, I actually think that Tyleek is the most valuable player to this defense, because not only does he make the linebackers' jobs easier and put on the pressure and make tackles from the defensive tackle position, but he makes Ty Hamilton better next to him. And that's tough to do. Did you know that in 2002, when the Buckeyes were winning a national championship, Autzen Stadium was raising its seating capacity from 42,000? 42,000. Like, I've always wanted to go to Autzen Stadium. I think the grass is pretty damn green in Eugene. I like everything about it. I think it's cool, but I got to tell you, I am so sick of hearing about the home field advantage and the unbelievably organ-shattering noise that the Buckeyes are about to experience on Saturday at Autzen Stadium. Ohio State is an excellent team. Ohio State historically plays good on the road. Basically, Beaver Stadium is the shoe east, for crying out loud. Penn State consistently ranked as one of the best home field advantages that there is in the country, right? And it's just obnoxious. I'm getting a little sick of it. A little too much love for Autzen Stadium. I understand it's going to be very loud, but and I'm not even knocking on the attendance. I was just teasing for a little bit there. It's definitely going to be loud. Breakout game on Saturday for the Bucks. Ask Bucks by 50. Interesting question for everybody. Interesting question. So tomorrow we're going to go through a little more on the game, and I'll have some more fun stuff like that. We get a question today, Chuck. Yes. Yes, we're going to have a question today. We're going to, oh, you're talking about a shirt question. Oh, no. So here's the deal. I got all the stuff from Columbus Apparel, And I've just got to put that on hold for a couple of weeks to let them get caught up with they've now raised over $140,000 for Johnny Hockey. They did their Johnny Hockey shirts, and all that money is going to Matthew Goudreau's widow, who's pregnant. And it's just absolutely bogged down everything, but for a wonderful cause. So I'm willing to wait, and but we will definitely get on that soon. These are a blend. Shirts are a blend, very soft and fantastic. Ducks fan says, I'm not one of those Oregon fans that getting cocky. Dave reminds the Ducks fans that is the only win against Ohio State, the one in 2021, which is true. Oh, let's go through a couple of pictures. So I wanted to pull up these pictures, and I feel like looking at a few of these pictures of Autzen Stadium, like you get a little bit of a better feel of, like this one in particular. When you look, I'm just trying to figure, like, how can this place be so loud? But if you look at the sideline to how close they are to the field, so they're pretty close, and then it does kind of go straight up, and then on that side you got that overhang, which certainly probably reverberates it right back down from pulling out further. I mean, it does look like a really intimate setup. And I was reading some stuff on it last night. The designer said he thinks of it as a potato chip. It's an upside down potato chip. Maybe not upside down. So the Buckeyes released this picture, and this is what's got everybody thinking maybe that they are thinking about wearing the white pants, or maybe they're setting us up for the white pants, which a lot of people have been clamoring for. I would love to see it. I would absolutely love to see it. And I would also absolutely love to see you. Please like the video and please subscribe to the Juck on Bucks channel. Creators like me put a lot of hard work into our shows, and something that you guys can do to help support us, if you like the shows, is to click the like button, click the subscribe button. And I would really appreciate it if you guys would help me out with that. But there are some interesting Heisman odds I wanted to share with you, because I'm usually not someone who cares much about the Heisman. But what's pretty wild is I looked down the top 25 guys. Who wins the Heisman, right? Quarterbacks. Out of the top 25 guys, there are only 3 position players. 3. And they just happen to be the top 2 guys at the top, in Travis Hunter and Ashton Jeanty. Travis Hunter obviously doing something that we haven't seen done in forever. And Ashton Jeanty, a guy who is running the ball in a way that might break Barry Sanders' single season record. The other 22 of them quarterbacks. So you got Jeanty and Travis Hunter at number 1 and number 2, which means you've essentially got to have a historic season to even be included in the top 25, which to me is lazy and stupid. But there's one more position player in college football that is in the top 25. And he is a freshman wide receiver at Ohio State who's played 5 games in his career and still, according to everybody in the country, hasn't played anybody. Jeremiah Smith is tied for 10th in the Heisman odds, and he is just one of 3 position players. That's amazing, guys. That's amazing. And we'll go through these real quick. If you got Ashton Jeanty, number 1 at plus 240, Travis Hunter plus 320. Jaden Milroe is number 4. I don't know how I don't have it in 3. Number 5. Listen, this is kind of infuriating. Number 5, Dylan Gabriel. Like, are you serious? Like, we just went over his numbers. They're the same as Will Howard's. Like, surely Will Howard must be next, right? No, it's Carson Beck, then Jackson Dart, then Quinn Ewers, who's missed half the season, then Cade Klubnik, then Nico. Tied with Shedeur Sanders is JJ at number 10. How about that? Shedeur Sanders, a guy who walked in as a consensus top 3 pick. And JJ is tied with Shedeur Sanders for the 10th best odds to win the Heisman Trophy. That's amazing. But looking at the stats here of a guy like Carson Beck, who was pretty much the overall favorite to win the Heisman walking in, 1,359 yards, 12-3 with an 81 QBR. That QBR stat means nothing, but just for comparison, Will Howard, 1250, 12-3, 84. Literally better than Carson Beck and way better than Nico. Nico, I mean, this is trash, right? Like, that's just trash. I'm sorry. Hey, take a look at this graphic here. We have had a lot of talk about the Buckeyes and defensive pressure, defense altogether. Sacks, and we're looking at the best of the best. Georgia, Alabama, Wisconsin, A&M, Clemson, Michigan, Florida State, Florida. Number one, and so the light blue, that color right there that the Buckeyes have, that's number one in the category. Number one in sacks, number one in forced fumbles, number one in tackles, number one in tackles for loss. So for anybody worried about the production of the Buckeyes up front, it's not something to be worried about. It's not something to be worried about at all, unless you're somebody who thinks that they still haven't played anybody, and we'll see what happens when they do. I feel pretty damn solid about it. That's for sure. That is for sure. All right, guys, let's talk to the chat a bit before we roll on out of here. You Drink It current spread is Buckeyes -3.5, which that's the other thing when we talk about Autzen Stadium being. So Autzen Stadium is a great home field advantage. Most conventional stadiums, you would say, are worth 3 points. Autzen, I think, is worth 4, which means on a neutral field, Ohio State is a 7.5-point favorite. So we're talking over a touchdown favorite on a neutral field. And I got to tell you guys, like, what I see for this game, like we see in so many big games, Georgia, Ohio State. Look at the Georgia, Ohio State. We're talking about two teams with solid defensive play. And it just feels to me like in these big games, they always find a way to be high scoring. And it just seems like that's the way it goes. And that's why I think this 52 is going to get blown out of the water. Like, you look at 52, what's 52? That's the number. That's a 28-24 game. And I just don't see it happening. I just don't see it happening. And Tyler's going 42-14. So that's another thing to talk about. Like, what are the ramifications of, both nationally and for both of these teams if we do see a blowout one way or the other? What if Ohio State goes out there and loses by 7? I don't think it's a big deal for most of us, as long as it's not a sloppy disaster. I think that generally we're not going to see a huge meltdown from the fan base, certainly not from the team. They are going out into a hard environment. You can't discount that. And a really good team. But if you go out and you see a Buckeye team that looks like they beat themselves, like they made stupid errors, like they made poor coaching decisions, and they end up losing by 17 points because of a couple bad turnovers and just some poor decisions. Like, if you see a game like that, then I think there's a very different tone. On the other end of it, if Ohio State goes out and does that to Oregon, I think that it is maybe more of a statement of how good is Oregon really, because they've already shown early that maybe they're not as good as a lot of people hyped them up to be moving in. I could be wrong. There's so many different storylines to go here, but the end result is, if this is a close game, I think it's almost like, whatever, we're going to play again. If it's a blowout one way or the other, I think that we're going to see one of these fan bases really melt down and get furious with their coaching staff, which is going to be rather funny if it's them. Won't be too funny for me talking to you guys every day, because I'll be right there with you. And I certainly don't want it to be, I hate having negative shows, but if they go out there and they beat themselves, that's going to really irritate a lot of us, I'm sure. My man Dot is absolutely tired of hearing about that stadium. Yeah, guys, I'm kind of sick of it. What's going on, Eddie? Eddie says, I completely understand the reason for the defense. I would just like to see more man scheme defense instead of zone scheme. I think we're going to see a good mix here. Terry on Autzen Stadium. Terry does not believe that it's going to be more challenging than a Penn State whiteout, just his opinion. I would say the only thing that, and I agree with you, Terry, I would say, just on the surface, Penn State, a nighttime whiteout is definitely, for a big Ohio State, Penn State game, going to be the tougher environment. But when you factor in the travel, maybe that puts Autzen over the top. But it's just getting so overblown. Will Coey thinks Oregon is food on Saturday. I believe it more and more as the days go on. And I'm with you. Like, I have grown more and more confident about this from the middle of June, like a little bit every day. There's nothing that has gone backwards for me. Kyle, Kyle, shed the shirt, buddy. Looking good. Looking good, bro. Kyle said, let's talk about Boise State running all over Oregon, and Ohio State has 2 running backs just as good. So interesting point. Jeff Schwartz, who is an Oregon grad, talks college football now. He's a pundit. He was an offensive lineman for Oregon in the, mid 2010s. And he has been tweeting about this game all week. And his profound thought yesterday was, let me set something straight. Ashton Jeanty did not run all over Oregon. And then he goes over all the separate runs he had where they bottled him up. And he just had 3 70-yard runs. And that immediately made me think of Lincoln Riley saying, we're just a couple of plays being away from undefeated. I mean, you could literally say this about any game, any rushing attack, like you could say this about anything. So yes, Oregon was just a couple of plays away from not giving up 200 yards to Ashton Jeanty, but then they went ahead and did it, right? They went ahead and gave up all those yards, didn't they? So there we go. There we have it. And I am with Kyle. The Buckeyes certainly have a couple of running backs that can hurt you. Okay, here goes our guy. This is one of our Duck guys here. He just joined, so he's replying to the title. But Autzen, not overhyped. It's the real deal. And I believe that you believe that, but I also believe that you've probably never been to a Penn State whiteout. I could be wrong, but I'm just going to guess you've never been there. What I can tell you is the Buckeyes have. And I don't think it's something out of, I think it's probably pretty close, right? I've never been to an Oregon game at night or any Oregon game. And I can tell you that the Buckeyes have experience playing in big time games in rough environments. Oh, check this out, guys. They're about to renovate the north side of Autzen Stadium from 59,000 to 75. And that would be taking it from 2002, 42,000 up to 75. That's a huge reno. Are they adding another deck? Because it's currently only a 1-deck potato chip. Steely Matt says it looks like a Texas high school stadium. TW says Oregon is going to have the second string in the 4th, like they did Michigan State. So very confident that Oregon is going to absolutely whoop Ohio State. I love it, man. Support your team. Richie Dubs, thanks, brother. Appreciate you. Only the best. Only the best for the Juckeyes, right? Anthony thinks the score will be 42-20 Ohio State, and that's more of a, I don't think it's going to be quite that big of a disparity, but when I see 42, like I'm thinking like 42s, 40s and 30s. That's kind of the score. I'm thinking this is going to be a big score, which is why I think that those stops are going to be such a premium. And I absolutely want to see a couple of stops from those linebackers. It's such a big game for them. Our guy Dylan was rough on those backers the other day. He's really worried about them. The Duck Knight hopes that the Bucks wear all white, as the Ducks will be wearing all black, All white, all black would look pretty slick. I would like to see that. I also love the look of the Buckeyes with the white jersey and white pants. But all in all, the Buckeyes standard away set is the best away uniform in all of college football. If you've never been to Autzen, then how can you say anything about the environment? I can't, but I can say that the team has been to Penn State for a whiteout, right? And Ohio State plays good. So do you think that Autzen is a better environment than that? Maybe you do. I would say, I don't know. Probably pretty similar. I would probably give the nod to Penn State. But what I can't wait for is when the Buckeyes go out there and win in that environment and you guys all shut up about it. Like, really, that's what I can't wait for. Kyle doesn't think Oregon is that special. Nothing Ohio State doesn't see regularly. Here's the thing. If the Buckeyes lose the game, like, are you guys going to let Autzen take credit for it? Or are you going to say that the Ducks beat them? Right? Because, like, leading into the game, you guys are making it sound like if Oregon wins, it's going to be because of a stadium. Like, I'm just sick of hearing about it. Autzen is built like a funnel and dug deeper than ground level, which makes it louder. All right, here's our guy. As a Duck fan, I don't care anything about 2021 or anything that happened before the landing area. I just care about this Saturday. And this is generally my philosophy on all of college football. Like, when you talk about things like, I picked Miami to win the ACC this year. People absolutely hammered me talking about what Miami's done for the past 20 years. I don't give a darn what Miami's done the last 20 years. I'm talking about this coaching regime right now. And I feel the same way about Oregon. When people say Oregon's never won a national championship, it means nothing to me. I'm talking about this regime right now and the support around the program, et cetera. And when you talk about the Ohio State Oregon game in 2021, clearly Ohio State runs a totally different defense. So it means absolutely nothing as far as this game. It's just a way for the Oregon fans to pound their chest, which, if we wanted to come back with that, well, I think we've got some ammo that maybe meant a little more, but I really haven't seen many people coming back with that. My man Dot's hilarious, man. Amazon does think it's a little crazy for either side to come in overconfident. Now, I generally agree, and I don't feel that I'm overconfident, but really, if you look at this on a neutral field, the Buckeyes would be a 7.5-point favorite in my estimation. And a 7.5-point favorite, I mean, that generally inspires a solid amount of confidence. You know what I mean? Thinking it's going to be a blowout either way, I don't know where you're, like, I think that is probably a little wishful thinking. But a solid touchdown favorite, that usually inspires a bit of confidence. We'll talk about this more tomorrow, but Woody's is our Juck guy who went back and watched every single possession last year, Kansas State, with Will Howard in. And he had to go watch every possession because he had to, every red zone possession. He had to kick out the ones with Avery Johnson. And his intent was to find the true red zone touchdown percentage for Kansas State's offense when Will Howard was in. How many touchdowns did Kansas State score in the red zone with Will Howard? The answer was 42 out of 50. We look ahead this year, the Buckeyes have scored in 21 trips in the red zone, 20 touchdowns, which is obviously first in the country. Will Howard's a wizard down there, man, an absolute wizard. And again, another thing like slow starts that has plagued the Buckeyes that seems to be taken care of. Eddie says the PR campaign is so important in Heisman voting. No doubt about that. No doubt about that. And historically, Ohio State not been very good at this. And the guy that leads the push for that kind of stuff, who did a poor job with Marvin last year, came in late with that "Here Comes the Sun" campaign, which was weak as hell. And Marvin won by 1 vote because of that, in my opinion. Richie thinks the Ohio State run game is going to be the difference. 2 Genties is crazy. I love it. You guys are great, man. Absolutely enormous show today. I don't know that I've ever seen this many folks in here. This is wild, man. This is wild. Thank you so much to all the Juck guys. Guys, please like the video. Please subscribe to the channel. I appreciate you all so much. Appreciate all your support. Obviously, a fantastically huge game. Mika says, Jameer Scott, Wisconsin commit, should get a cornerback 3 look. Oh, Mika's giving me a cornerback 3 homework. Gonna check out Jameer Scott. I totally agree with this, Brad. Self-inflicted wounds, turnovers just might determine who the winner is. And when you look at both of these quarterbacks, just last week, Dylan Gabriel throws 2 "what the hell are you doing" passes. Will Howard, in the last couple of games, has thrown a couple "what the hell are you doing" passes. And it seems like it could be plausible. Hey, TW, man. That's not how we get down in here, bro. Love having opposing fan bases, but yeah, not like that. Dave says, Juck, I agree with you about Fryar. Wonder how much he'll struggle with the speed rusher. That's what he's struggled with, right, Dave? Like the really athletic guys, the dude on Akron. And the kid from Marshall, Green, who, wow, that kid from Marshall, Green, made an amazingly athletic move on him. And he struggled. When we talk about the powerful guys, he's absolutely stonewalled those dudes. But the super athletes, like he's about to go against a guy who's really powerful and athletic in Birch. It's tough, man. It's going to be a tough matchup, and it's an incredibly consequential matchup to me. The single biggest, most important guy on the offense outside of Will Howard is how does he do? He's going to get beat a couple of times. We just got to hope that they're not in huge moments and they don't result in turnovers. The Duck Knight is more worried about Henderson. And the Duck Knight, by the way, a super classy guy. We always enjoy his company. He's more worried about Henderson than Judkins. The Ducks wrap up, but can give up big runs. And when we look at yards after catch, Quinshawn is, I'm sorry, yards after contact. Let's take a look at this rushing. So Quinshawn 4th in the country at yards per carry at 7.8 yards per carry, which is 4th behind Ashton Genty, Caleb Johnson, I think some kid from Navy. So Quinshawn yards per carry, quite a bit better than Travion this year, which I thought they were neck and neck. I was pretty surprised to see that. But the Buckeyes, 1,111 yards on the season, a total of 6.2 yards per carry for the Buckeye backs. Oregon, 882 yards, 4.6 yards per carry. So the Buckeyes backs going to obviously get a big test, and I can't wait for it, man. This is just going to be amazing. White on white, like Air Force Ones. You guys in those Air Force Ones, man. Eddie says, looks like Sonny's starting to figure things out a little bit, which is perfect timing. So Sonny's going to see a totally different deal here, right? Last week, he was excellent playing in the 4-3 as the Sam. This week, he goes back to playing the Will in the 4-2, which is where he struggled. So we're talking two different deals. And if you see him look like he has looked before, don't be surprised, is basically what I'm saying. But he is getting better. He definitely. Mika says, show offered, he needs to stay. Flip Brew, land Jakeem Stewart, who will also be in attendance. Make Trey McNutt wish he was a Buckeye. Trey, yeah, I'm with you. Make him wish he was a Buckeye. Go ahead, stay. I'm kidding. I would obviously take him, but man. Small Town Collectibles, RPO game. Judkins and Howard, Zone Reed, and JJ going across the middle. Good luck, Ducks. Richie Dub says, Duck fans, does it bother y'all how much Dan Lanning says right after every statement? I don't know if it bothers them, but it bothers me. By the way, I watched Dan Lanning's press conference the other day. He did not say that, Richie. I don't think I heard him say right one time. But he didn't talk much to them because he was a total jerk. Guy is such a jerk. Yeah, they need to make sure he doesn't run. Not that he's a great runner, but he's good enough. He's good enough where it gets you and surprises you. You know what I mean? Hey, Terry, what's up, brother? Speedman 606. Small Town Collectibles says Ryan Day always has his guys show up in big games unless they have our signs. They definitely showed up against Georgia. Bradley says he's going to have his eyes locked on Sonny and Fryar, which I think are honestly the most consequential guys on offense and defense, excluding quarterbacks. Sonny on defense, Fryar on offense. Honestly, those two could be, if you just break it down into real simple terms, like those two could be the absolute keys to the game. What's up, Scooch? Good to see you. Eddie, I'm going to look this up. Eddie says, what was Judkins' carry yards per carry last season? Unless anybody has time to look that up and can throw it in the chat. I'm telling you what, man, I'm so impressed with Quinshon Judkins. I obviously didn't watch a ton of Ole Miss and just watched his highlights, but he even looks better than last year. He really does. He looks better than last year. Nat Daddy 79. Can Chris get over his man crush on Dan Lanning this week? Chris has been, look, I mean, in all fairness, I've been really high on Dan Lanning as well. Really high. So no doubt about that. All right, my friends. So tomorrow is Friday. We will go over definitely the keys on offense to getting the big victory in Autzen, along with other tomfoolery, our predictions, We will probably go a little bit longer tomorrow, give you guys an opportunity just to, we're just going to sit here, we're going to talk. And then Saturday, when we look at the slate of games, which we're going to go over tomorrow, as well as our picks, I'm guessing that we're going to want to talk about this game a lot more. So we'll probably pop up and do a live at some point on Saturday, just so we can shoot the crap as we wait till prime time for the game, which I like the game being in prime time, but at the same time, we got to wait all damn day. And we're going to want to talk about the game. So at some point, and we'll figure that out tomorrow, what time we're going to do that. We're going to pop this puppy up, and we are going to definitely do a live at some point on Saturday, just to talk about what we're getting into and kind of rehash what we're thinking before the game. So anyway, appreciate you all for joining me on maybe the biggest ever Juck on Bucks. Appreciate all the Juck guys. Please like the video. Please subscribe for me. I would appreciate that very much. And I see a lot of awesome names in here, a lot of friends. You guys are great, man. And I will talk to you guys soon. Juck on Bucks out.